We've got 8 games to talk about, and I'm, of course, joined by Adam Scher. Adam, how are you doing?
Doing good. Excited for a new week because last week was not great for me. How was your weekend?
Same. Did a lot of shows, and this morning's no different. Didn't do too well in DFS, but getting close. So hopefully, yeah, new week can turn it around here. And I don't know. What do you think about this 8 gamer? I kind of like the slate size. I don't know about the slate itself.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. It's an interesting slate size, but not a super interesting slate, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see if we can parse through some of these pitching options. So we're gonna need your analysis here. We were, of course, presented by Yahoo. We love playing on Yahoo, and a lot of people in our chat have been really liking playing these rake-free tournaments. No management fee. It's called the MLB 4.5K guaranteed. 500 bucks to first, and no management fee is obviously huge. We always talk about that. If you can find that, wherever you can find that, you're going to want to be getting in those tournaments. It's a 10 max, $3, so 30 bucks to max enter. Only, or you can only put in a lineup or two if you need. You can compete because there's only 1,500 people, only 1,500 entries in that tournament. So get in that tournament on Yahoo. Um, it is of course a two pitcher site. There's different pricing, so a little bit different than what you're seeing on some of the bigger sites, but much better for your long term ROI. And then I'm excited to see what they put out for football. I think they're going to make a splash in these week 1 contests. So
Yeah, I'm excited for that too.
yeah,
They did a really good job last year, kind of making their name. So hopefully they do it again.
yeah, the guaranteed overlay that was massive for a few weeks they did there. So even if it's management fee free, I'm hoping they have some good contests, and I'm sure they will deliver on those. Looking at lineup study, Adam and I didn't notice anyone on the DraftKings side winning anything substantial. I mean, you got Chipotle Addict winning the $68 yesterday. Obviously, a really awesome player there. Um, and then, of course, Alex Osimo took down the 100K on FanDuel yesterday. I think this is 2 straight weeks on a Sunday. He's taken down the MLB Colossus.
Yeah, I think last week he got first and second.
Yeah, so he was nice enough to let someone else win second this week. I actually haven't looked at the lineup. It was a 4-4 Kansas City Atlanta. I was on Atlanta pretty heavily yesterday. I didn't get to a ton of KC. Do you remember if you were on them?
I didn't get to a lot of KC either. On DraftKings, I actually got to a decent amount of Daniel Norris just because he was unowned and cheap, and I hated all the pitching, but didn't get to nearly as much Kansas City as I would have liked.
Yeah. So that was one that I kind of missed on once you started seeing the double dongs, Dozier double donged, Soler double donged, and just had a massive game there. So kind of knew I wasn't competing at that point, but Alex had, and you know the Brave stack didn't go nuts, but he had the good parts, a couple good parts. Acuna, Freeman, both did okay, and then actually two zeros in a 100K lineup here. That's what happens when you get these smaller tournaments, but took down half of the overall prizes. Are there any other tournaments we should take a look at here? Looking at the winners, I'm not seeing anything too crazy. I mean, that showdown tournament yesterday on DraftKings was pretty big. 150K guaranteed, 50K to first. Looking at the extra innings from yesterday, the $10, not a lot of familiar names, so maybe it wasn't a great day for the pros. Chipotle Addict was up there. Like I said, he won the $68. Wakey cashing 112 out of 150 lineups. Always interesting when he has a big day because he basically goes all in on like 1 to 3 teams, and KC was his team yesterday. So looks like he had a pretty good day despite not winning this tournament. All the Verlander in the world had Fulte, had a bunch of Junis, it looks like, and then just so many KC 5-man stacks as you're seeing as I'm scrolling across here. So gonna help when a bunch of your lineups have two double dongs in them with Dozier and Soler, even if he's not winning tournaments when he does this. When you're cashing 70+% of your lineups, you're gonna be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, a lot of Kansas City 4-man stacks at the top. The winning lineup on DraftKings in the $10 was a 4-2 Kansas City, St. Louis, followed by a 4-2 Kansas City, Houston, 4-4, and then a few like 5-mans, and then right back to like a naked 4-man, 4-4, 4-3. I don't know. It's kind of a weird slate.
Yeah. The winner had 14 lineups. So the winner in this tournament the last few days had a single bullet. So 2 lineups for the guy in 5th place, 3 for the guy in 6th, 1 for the guy that finished 8th. So it can be done with a single bullet. It's really tough, but we see it happen quite a bit. So probably not something I would be doing, playing a single bullet in this kind of tournament, but it's really tough trying to compete here with any amount of lineups with all these good players. Slewfoot, I know, had a big weekend as well. Slewfoot becoming one of the better MLB players, already maybe the best NHL player, and now playing more and more in MLB in those high dollar tournaments and crushing. All right, let's get into some of these games here. Let's start with Baltimore and the Yankees. Right now I'm seeing a total here, 4.3 implied going to Baltimore, 7.5 going to the Yankees. I don't have pitching because Inoa and Paxton are supposed to go in the early game. Right now we have TBD for both spots, but do you have any clue who is going for either side here? Obviously not someone good for Baltimore. Not that they really have any good pitchers, but I guess Asher Wojciechowski maybe is their best pitcher right now, and he went yesterday. So it's not going to be him, and the Yankees have a massive total.
Yeah, MLB.com has TBD for both sides as well. I'm guessing it's just going to basically be a bullpen game for both teams, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would think it's going to be something along those lines. Probably won't see an extended kind of real starter here for Baltimore, but a massive total for the Yankees nonetheless. So we'll know more about this game once we get a confirmed starter. I don't know. Is this usual protocol for doubleheaders? Usually they have both starters kind of locked up before the day starts, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is just because, I mean, the Yankees have been doing the opener thing a lot lately anyway. And then the Orioles, like if you look at the pitchers that it isn't, like it's obviously not Wojciechowski, like you said. Bundy pitched on the 9th, so it's not Bundy. I don't even know who else starts for the Orioles. Means, I guess, pitched.
I think it might be Means. I saw him yesterday.
Means pitched on the 7th, so
5 days.
This would be like his normal day.
Yeah, so maybe it's going to be Means, but obviously not sure. If it is Means, does that change anything for you, or is it all systems go here for the Yankees?
No, still all systems go. I mean, Means, I think, is a pretty average pitcher, but Yankees still have a lot of right-handed power here, and the Orioles still have a terrible bullpen, so nothing really changes.
Yeah. So it's probably going to be Chad Green opening for the Yankees, and then I'm not sure who it's going to be after, but since they do have a total, I'm assuming we should find out pretty quickly who it's going to be for both sides. So we'll circle back to this one at the end of the show if we get it by then. If not,
DraftKings has Eshelman.
Eshelman? Oof. Yeah, Fangraphs does too.
He threw 7 pitches on the 10th. He threw 49 on the 7th.
So he's only going a couple innings at most.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, 2 day. I mean, basically 1 day rest if he went on Saturday for a few pitches. He's really bad. Not a guy that's going to get strikeouts. So you're seeing why possibly this Yankees team is projected to score more runs than any team on the slate tonight. And we've got a Coors game with multiple 7 totals over there. So Yankees have to be considered as one of the best stacks, regardless of who's pitching here for Baltimore.
He averages like 85 miles an hour on his fastball.
That's terrible. That's like Bartolo Colon. Like,
yeah,
that's
85.5 miles per hour on his fastball.
Yikes. So he's throwing a little bit harder than your average batting practice fastball. Yeah. Yankees should probably tee off here. And you've got $4,400 Aaron Judge. You've got $4,100 Didi Gregorius. If Gardner's projected to bat 5th, that's a pretty nice price at $4,500. Gleiber at $4,400. So the Yankees are just way, way, way too cheap for this implied total. I'm expecting a lot of people to take advantage of that. I'm interested to see where their ownership's going to be at once we get that. I have to think probably the highest owned team on basically every site right now. Yeah, wow, they're really cheap on Yahoo as well. Judge 18, Gregorius 16, Gardner 18, Torres 14, Ford 9. I mean, you just got value all over the place. So, wow, Yankees looking like the front runner for ownership right now. Anything on the Orioles side you want to point out? Any prices that stand out to you since we don't really have the pitching confirmed yet?
No, not really.
Okay.
The Orioles just kind of are what they are. Like Mancini's fairly priced. Santander is fairly priced. Nunez is fairly priced. VR is expensive. Everyone else sucks.
All right, well said. Let's move it on to the next game as we just got ownership. Cincinnati Reds and the Washington Nationals. We've got Anthony Desclafani going up against Eric Fede. Reds 5.3 implied total, Nats 5.4 implied total. It is expected to be about 90 degrees with the wind blowing out in DC here. So you're seeing big totals. What do we like here? $9,600 Desclafani going up against a good Nats team?
I wish the price tag was lower because it's not a terrible matchup for him. The Nats are good. They don't strike out a lot, so it's bad in that regard. But Desclafani is really, really good against right-handed hitters, and he's really, really bad against lefties. The Nats have a right-handed heavy lineup, and then they may or may not have Juan Soto today, who was injured yesterday. My assumption is that they won't. So it's a really favorable lineup as far as handedness goes for Desclafani, but 9,600 on DraftKings, 8K on FanDuel, 37 on Yahoo. None of those are super appealing. 37 on Yahoo, I guess, and 8K on FanDuel are the two most appealing. But really, you're just looking at either full stacks or left-handed bats for the Nats. Full stacks just because obviously they are still a good offensive team, but Matt Adams would be the individual bat that really stands out.
Yeah, so if it's only Adams and Eaton in the lineup as far as lefties against Desclafani, he becomes, I think, at least in play, probably not on DraftKings, but 8K on FanDuel on this poor pitching slate. I think you could make that work. And then $37 on Yahoo, probably the best price you'll see for Desclafani across the industry here. Soto being in or out makes a huge difference. Obviously, a guy that struggles versus lefties. And then you take out their best lefty, and now all of a sudden you've got a guy who not only do you probably not want to target against very much, but you're looking to play more and more, especially where he's cheaper. So Yahoo, Desclafani is going to be a guy I probably get to, especially if Soto's not in the lineup. And then you mentioned Matt Adams. I like that call there. Any interest in Fede, 6,200 going up against the Reds here?
No, the Reds don't have a ton of strikeouts in their lineup. They do have some good hitters. Eric Fede's terrible. So all those things, kind of working together. For the season, he has an 11.7% strikeout percentage, 9.9% walk percentage, 1.9 K minus BB percentage is obviously the worst on the slate, 5.33 xFIP, 5.84 Sierra. Not really many redeeming qualities for this guy. And then you do get some decent bats in the lineup with, Winker, Votto, Suarez, Van Meter, Aquino, who does nothing but hit home runs now. Nick Senzel. I mean, it's not a bad Cincinnati lineup either. I would rather get to the Reds than get to Eric Fede.
Yeah, that's probably the right call, and they're priced appropriately. So I would imagine they're going to be a somewhat popular stack with a 5.3 implied total in this kind of weather against a pitcher who can't really miss bats. Fede may be just a little bit too expensive for me to be getting to with any regularity on DraftKings. Look at the Reds pricing on FanDuel. They're also cheap there. And then Yahoo. Wow. $12 for Winker, $12 for Votto, $11 for Van Meter, $13 for Senzel. I mean, you can get to them really, really easy. Aquino up to $27 on Yahoo after hitting 1 million home runs this weekend.
That's a pretty extreme price tag.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd be getting to that, but you would make the stack contrarian, and he is one of the better parts if you are stacking that up against Fede, I suppose. All right, let's move on to the Rangers and the Blue Jays. We've got Ariel Jurado going up against Neil Ramirez. Jurado 6,800, Ramirez 4K, 5.5 implied total for the Rangers, 5.6 for the Blue Jays. Looks like this roof may be open in Toronto. Not exactly sure yet, but an 11 implied total for this game, or an 11 total for this game, and basically split down the middle. First of all, do you like any of the pitchers here?
Sorry, Toronto game.
Yeah, Toronto game.
Yeah. So it's Neil Ramirez opening and then Brock Stewart? Yeah. So Brock Stewart coming in relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like Brock Stewart on DraftKings. He's still 4K for whatever reason. Threw 64 pitches against Tampa Bay his last time out. He's not any good, but Texas right now missing Joey Gallo. Not a great lineup. You know, the top is dangerous from like Chu through Calhoun. Then Odor has power, but he's not a good hitter. But Kiner Falefa, DeShield's math is terrible at the bottom. The thing is, though, I mean, 4K is 4K, and there's not a lot of good pitching on this slate, and a lot of the good pitchers are in tough matchups. So using him lets you get to like a Zach Greinke against the White Sox pretty easily, which I think is where a lot of people are going to want to go.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, there's slates where 4K pitcher is necessary, and there's slates where it's not. And I think here it definitely is necessary when there's a Coors Field slate and massive totals on both sides. I dropped in Emacs Spotlight Hitters article if you guys want more information about how to get some Yahoo Sports rewards points up to $30 in those bad boys. If you want to check those out, make sure to look in Emacs article, and you can find a little bit more information on how to do so when you sign up at Yahoo using the promo code AWESEMO. And then, of course, give Emacs Spotlight Hitters a read. He works hard on those. He does those articles every day, I'm realizing. That's quite the grind for an MLB season. So give those a look. Give Emac a shout out on those. And I agree with you on Brock Stewart here for 4K. So he's the guy that I'll get to. I wonder what Alex is going to have him projected for because of the high implied total. I think he's going to be at a point where I'm going to play him anyways against Texas. But are there any Texas bats you're looking to target against Stewart here?
If Stewart gets a lot of ownership, I think full Texas stacks become interesting just from a leverage standpoint. But the thing, we've talked about it before, but the thing with leveraging against a popular 4K pitcher as opposed to, you know, like an 8K guy is, let's say Stewart goes out there and, you know, gives up 4 or 5 runs, scores like 5 or 6 points. It didn't really kill the Stewart teams. It didn't single-handedly win you anything with the Texas teams. It's when you're leveraging against a cheap pitcher, it's still pretty easy to kind of just end up in the middle where like you didn't really gain anything. So that's one thing to keep in mind if that is an approach that you were looking to take. I think that Mazzara is a good, really cheap bat. I think Shin-Soo Choo is a good play. Those are the two that really stand out. Odor, probably one of the better second base point per dollar options as well.
Yeah, I like it. I like the call on the full Texas stack too, especially if he's going to be popular. And I agree, like you said, you kind of need that 4K pitcher to go negative if you're doing a leverage stack. You need him to be basically completely knocked out of the game with no chance of being on the winning lineup if you're going to be doing something like a full Texas stack here. But it is a good spot regardless because they do have a really healthy implied total here. Jay's same implied total basically against Urado. I don't know if Urado is that bad, but maybe this is more to do with the Texas bullpen and possibly the roof being open. We've seen Urado have some decent performances as of late, show a little bit of K upside, and go 100 pitches. So is he someone that you're considering at all on this slate in Toronto?
I think he's a little more expensive than I would like. If he just doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. If he were cheaper, I'd be a little bit more interested. But 17.7% strikeout percentage, 5.02 Sierra, 1.39 home runs per 9. Just not really very good.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, almost 7K for Urado. We're used to seeing him be priced super cheap, and he's not that cheap here. So you're probably better off going to the other side with Stewart coming in after the first inning or two and probably having a better chance at the win with a little bit less run prevention, assuming he's going less innings, or you need less innings out of him than a guy like Urado. Blue Jays bats, cheap. As always, the most expensive guy right now is Bo Bichette at $4,500, but he's leading off everyone else $4,200 or below on DK. Probably going to grade out as a pretty solid value stack, but one that I'm assuming is going to be overvalued relative to their chances of the top stack as people try to fit in Greinke, and I don't even know who else people are going to go to at the top here. But do you like the Blue Jays here? Do you think they're going to come in a little overowned as well?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that they come in a little bit overowned relative to their top stack percentage, just because, I mean, both sides of this game are very, very good point per dollar plays. I think that a lot of cash plays probably come from this game today. But one thing Jurado has struggled with more than anything this year is right-handed power. He's allowed a 214 ISO to righties compared to 159 to lefties. So that obviously sets up really nicely for Bichette, Guerrero, Grichuk in particular, Teoscar Hernandez, and Jansen at the bottom of the order too.
Yeah, surprising to see Jurado on DraftKings at 20% ownership right now. I did not really expect that in Texas with this high implied total against him. And then Eric Fede, 23% right now.
Do we have Brock Stewart in there?
I don't believe we do. It's difficult with the openers.
Right. Yeah.
Usually the first time around, but if Tom's watching, if you could run ownership again with Stewart in there, that would be great. Because I'm sure that would change some things, but both those guys getting ownership, anyone basically on the slate right now is getting a little bit of ownership as far as pitchers go. So a lot of guys with pretty tough matchups, but it's a tough pitching slate overall. Let's go to Boston and Cleveland. We've got Eduardo Rodriguez going up against Zach Plesac. Another couple guys that are probably a little overpriced, at least on DraftKings. 10-3 for Erod. Plesac at 9,400 against the Red Sox. We've got a 10.5 implied total here in Cleveland. Can you see yourself getting to either pitcher here at these prices on DraftKings?
I think it's pretty tough. Like, what are you really gaining other than like ownership, I guess? But by getting to these guys over like Greinke, Rodriguez is only $400 less expensive. He's facing a Cleveland team that just really doesn't strike out. And then Plesac isn't a very good strikeout pitcher anyway. And he's facing a really, really dangerous Boston lineup that doesn't strike out. So it's really tough for me to get to either guy.
Erod's the one that right now we expect some people to get to at 16% ownership. Honestly, I mean, we'll get to Greinke in just a minute as the Astros game is the next one on the slate. But, you're saving $400, but I don't think the ownership is close enough. I don't think there's a big enough gap to start looking at Erod in this spot here. 16% ownership compared to 40% for Greinke. The matchup for Greinke is just so much better. And it's only a $400 difference. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to ended up making a huge stand on Zach Greinke here. Looking at this, how the slate sets up right now, be closer to 100% on Greinke than I would be going underweight. Because I think you can fit Greinke in with one of these super cheap pitchers and still get all the bats you want as well. So I don't think I'm going to get to Erod. Probably won't get to Plesac either. Either side you're liking here for full stacks?
Really like the Boston side. Plesac just doesn't miss a lot of bats. 18.3% strikeout percentage against lefties, 18.6 against righties. Not giving up a ton of power, a 158 ISO to lefties, 208 to righties. But just, it's a Red Sox team where they don't strike out. The pitcher's not going to get strikeouts on his own. And there's just a ton of power in the lineup. So they're expensive. But, again, if you're pairing Greinke with a 4K pitcher, you can still afford, good stacks.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's going to be the construction I get to more often than not.
Especially because there are apparently 2 4K pitchers on this slate.
There's 2 of them?
Yeah, Pruitt for the
Rays. For the Rays. Ooh, nice. All right. That's gonna make it much easier to get to a lot.
Although he's not really stretched out. But
okay. And then any Cleveland hitters you want to point out against Erod? Erod's not someone I target against all that much, but Cleveland has been hitting much better lately.
Yeah, I don't target against Erod too much. He's been really good against right-handed bats this year. 23.5% strikeout percentage, 141 ISO, 312 WOBA. Pretty solid numbers there. The only reason I don't really like the spot for Erod is the lack of strikeouts. But, I guess Lindor's really favorably priced at 4,400 on DraftKings. Franmil Reyes at 3,200 gives you more power upside than probably any similarly priced player. But, aside from that, I don't think Cleveland's a team I'll get to a whole lot.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But Lindor at 4,400, basically against anyone, I think I'd probably get to him some at least as a one-off, especially if Erod's going to get mid-teens in ownership. All right, let's go to kind of the premier game on the slate, the one that's probably going to decide it, at least from a pitching perspective. We've got the Astros and the White Sox. Zach Greinke going up against Dylan Cease. 6.1 implied total here for the Astros. 3.6 for the White Sox. And then I'm just finding out right now there could be some weather concerns in this game. So it could become a really fun slate depending on what happens there. Right now, it's looking like there is a decent chance that this one does get postponed depending on the timing of the weather in Chicago. But assuming this game goes with no issues, it's all about Greinke, right?
Yeah, man, that's going to make this just absolutely brutal if it doesn't. But yeah, I mean, if the weather cooperates, it's a really favorable matchup for Greinke. It's probably the best pitcher on the slate. Not that he's fantastic, but 23.3% strikeout percentage, only a 3.9% walk percentage. So 19.4% K minus BB percentage is the best on the slate. Four flat Sierra, 3.82 xFIP. Facing a team that strikes out a ton. They don't have Yohan Moncada. They may not have Leury Garcia. Not that that's even like a big drop off, but the backups are even worse. So just a really, really good spot for Greinke.
All right, so we know it's a great spot for Greinke. He's getting a ton of ownership right now. That may drop throughout the day if people become more worried about weather here. If it looks dicey, just in general, I guess. I think I asked Josh this the other week about just how he treats games with weather issues. So if this game is not called at lock, how do you usually treat that with a pitcher you want to play a lot of?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just depends on the forecast at lock or close to lock. And, in the case of a pitcher, how it looks. If there's a good chance of a late start, but I think it'll be able to play, like if that's the forecast, then I'll just leave the pitcher in. But if it's more of a there's going to be rain in the middle of the game, there might be rain at the beginning of the game, that's when I just start getting off of them.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be rain in and out of the game. Or during, before, possibly after, at least the start time. So it's all going to come down to timing. I really don't know how I'm going to deal with this. But there are just no good options. So I think if it is dicey, I'd actually, on this slate, be more likely to play a bunch of Greinke and just hope it goes, hope he can get 5-6 innings clean at least, because there's just no other options I want to play. And if people are going to start getting off of the game, if it becomes dicey, if your favorite DFS weathermen are saying you might want to avoid it, then I'd probably be more likely to play it and just hope it goes and bet on the talent and the matchup here. So that's how I'm treating it right now. If it looks better by the time we get to the deeper dive and live before lock, I think that he's going to be my most exposed pitcher in a landslide. Astros bats, 6 implied total against Dylan Cease. Where do the Astros rank on kind of your top stacks right now? We've got both sides in the Coors game, and then the Yankees, and then Astros. Are they kind of 4th or 5th for you there?
Yeah, that's where I put him. I think it's a really good spot. So Cease has really good stuff. He's not a complete product though. He doesn't have good control, doesn't have good command. And Houston, as a team that doesn't have a lot of guys that strike out, they're the type of team that I would expect to give Cease a ton of trouble because, they're going to put balls in play against him. There's going to be guys on base, and then they have so many good hitters that can punish mistakes that he makes over the plate that I think it's a really, really favorable plate discipline matchup for Houston. The reason I don't have them higher is just that Cease has such better stuff than Eshelman, and he's not pitching in Coors, Merrill Kelly and Peter Lambert. So it's still hard to get Houston higher than 4th. But I do think that even though I respect Cease's stuff and he's a pitcher that in favorable matchups I'm interested in, this I think is about as bad a matchup as it can get for him.
Yep. Astros so deep. I want to look at their pricing on Yahoo to see if it's come down a bit, because this weekend they were almost unplayable over there.
They still are.
Wow. So 3 guys in their lineup at $27. That's pretty much as high as we see someone priced over on Yahoo for hitters. And so you've got the 2, 5, and 7 hitters in the projected lineup all at $27. And then if that's not enough, you've got your fillers $22, $25, $24, $22, and then finally you get to $11 and $9 Robinson Chirinos and Josh Reddick. So really, really difficult to stack over on Yahoo if you're trying to go to a six-man. You could probably make it work if you're running, 5-3 or 4-4 or something like that. But yeah, over there it's going to be difficult. On DraftKings, a little bit easier because we've got a 4K pitcher or possibly a couple that we can target. Astros just look so good right now. Really, really tough matchup for Cease, and I don't even think he's priced in play at 9,100 in this matchup here. Anything else here before we move it on? Any White Sox bats against Greinke for leverage? No.
Eloy Jimenez is 3K flat on DraftKings. Oh, never mind. I'm looking at FanDuel.
He's 3,500.
Yeah, I mean, that's still appealing.
Yeah.
So I would still, like, if I'm in that price range, though, I would obviously rather get to Franmil Reyes.
Right. I agree there. All right, let's go to the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. Coors Field. We've got Merrill Kelly and Peter Lambert. 6.9 implied total here for the Diamondbacks. They've come down just a little bit from last night, but 7.3 for the Rockies. Second highest implied total behind the Yankees here. All right, we know the bats are in premier spots here. Can you see yourself getting to either pitcher?
No. For Lambert, I mean, he's facing a lot of lefties, most likely for Arizona, who are getting a huge park shift going into Coors. He's been just awful against left-handed hitters. Doesn't get strikeouts against anyone and isn't good against righties either. But against lefties, 413 WOBA, 286 ISO. His expected numbers are slightly better, but when we're talking about Coors Field, I don't really care about the expected numbers anyway because he's going to underperform them. So no strikeouts, over a 400 WOBA, almost a 300 ISO, and facing guys like Lamb and Marte and Escobar and Peralta, not really where you want to be. And then on the other side for Merrill Kelly, he's not even really priced down for Coors. If he were like 6K on this slate, I could see maybe taking a shot at him. But just another pitcher that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, isn't very good. Huge park downgrade for him. To righties, he's allowed a 217 ISO this year. So I think that Story and Arenado really stand out. Mm-hmm. But it's all about the bats from this game, especially because both sides are affordable.
Yeah, they are. Weirdly affordable. You've got Daniel Murphy at 4,400. McMahon 42, Tapia 41. Not the greatest bats, but when you're talking about a team with a 7 implied total, you can add with guys like Blackman, Story, and Arenado. I think it makes all the sense in the world. Wow, Carson Kelly at $5,200. That's kind of crazy. But the rest of the Diamondbacks, like Peralta under 5K, I think has to be in play as a cash option. Probably same thing with Lamb, dual position eligibility for 4,300 against Lambert. Lambert allowing 2.13 home runs per 9 right now. I didn't even realize how bad he's been, but just cannot get strikeouts at all, 16.3% on the season. Just really bad. And then Kelly, like you mentioned, just not priced down enough to even be worth the play when you can essentially play a pitcher for half his price in probably a better expected matchup. So probably no pitchers for me either. Even as a way to differentiate, I don't think it's worth it tonight. Which team do you like better?
Arizona
against Lambert?
Yeah.
I wonder if either of these pitchers is getting owned at all right now, or if they're like 0.1%. Let's see, Lambert's at 5, Kelly at 0.3% right now. So, yep, no reason to go to either one of these guys. That game's pretty simple to talk about if we're just going to take pitching out of the equation. So we can move it on to Pittsburgh and the LA Angels. We've got a 4.6 implied total for Pittsburgh, 5.5 for the Angels. Mitch Keller going up against Jose Suarez. Suarez getting a bunch of ownership. I think he was around 20 when I last looked. 16% right now. $7,900. Tough strikeout matchup against Pittsburgh, but are you getting yourself some Suarez tonight?
I mean, it might have to get some just because of the other options, but it is a pretty scary matchup. He doesn't go super deep in the games, which is a concern as well. The Angels have had a pretty quick hook on him. He threw 91 pitches in his last start. Before that, 84, 80, 91, 69, 91, 90. So, he'll give you when he's pitching well, like around 90 pitches, but he hasn't gone more than 5 2/3 in a start yet this year. And his price tag is just bumped up to where, you need some innings out of the guy. So, that's a pretty legitimate concern. I think in tournaments, I would rather go to the other side of this game.
Mitch Keller?
Yep.
All right, talk about Keller. $8,400 here. You're the Keller truther. So what do you got here against the Angels? They're striking out a lot more. Is that part of it?
Yeah, that's part of it. It's also just a talent thing. Mitch Keller is on MLB Pipeline, the number 28 prospect in baseball right now. He's the Pirates' number 1 prospect. He's made 3 starts for the Pirates. They didn't go well, but who cares? At AAA, he's been good, striking out about 28% of hitters. He has the 5th highest swinging strike percentage out of starters in the International League that have thrown at least 80 innings this year. He's just been good and has good stuff, has a mid-90s fastball. It's not a good matchup against the Angels. Like, you still have to deal, obviously, with Trout, Ohtani, Upton, like a pretty good lineup. But it's not as terrible a matchup as it was for a lot of the season, because you have Matt Dice in there now, who's a 30% strikeout guy. You have Max Stassi replacing Jonathan Lucroy. You're going from like 13% strikeouts to 30%. Rengifo's in the lineup over Andrelton Simmons, so you're going from like 13% to 23% there. Justin Upton strikes out a lot. Calhoun strikes out. So you've gone from a lineup that's very productive and doesn't strike out to a lineup that's very productive and has plenty of strikeouts. So I think that difference matters. And again, more than anything, it's just that I think Keller is more talented. Like, if you look at the pitchers around him and their matchups, like, he's more talented than Plesac and he's got a better matchup. He's more talented than Cease and he has a better matchup. He's more talented than Suarez. He's better than Kelly and he's not in Coors. He's better than all those guys under him. It's kind of like if DeSclafani were 8,400 on DraftKings, we would have interest. Keller is 8,400 and he's got good enough stuff. He's fully stretched out. It wouldn't be surprising if he has a bad start, but I just don't really, especially with him being projected for low ownership, I would rather just have, when I'm in that price range, I would rather just have a bunch of Keller than, Suarez or Rodriguez for more or Jurado for less. Like, I would just rather that be Keller.
Yeah. I mean, right now we've got Keller at the exact same ownership as DeSclafani. DeSclafani $1,200 more expensive. So I like the pivot there, save a few dollars as well. They've got similar implied totals against, and both can get strikeouts. Keller with almost a 25% K rate on the season, and the Angels lineup not exactly what it was maybe like a month or two ago. So you can get strikeouts against them. We've seen good pitchers have big strikeout games against the Angels recently, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. And if he's just going to be completely forgotten, I think I'm going to get to some. And especially if the Greinke weather starts looking dicey, maybe a guy you could drop down to as people go to Lucchesi and probably DeSclafani and guys like Erod, just because they need to spend that salary somewhere. What about bats in this game? Either side appealing. I know you mentioned you like Keller, but any Angels bats besides the usual Trout, Ohtani?
Not really. The Angels lineup is really cheap, but then the question becomes, like, what are you paying down for? And you may or may not have Greinke on the slate. You really don't have 2 pitchers, I don't think, that you want to be paying up for. So it's pretty tough to justify rostering a bunch of not very good hitters for cheap on this slate. On the other side, the Pirates are just not that appealing of a stack. When you have both teams in Coors, you have both teams in Toronto that are in nice spots and favorably priced. You have the Yankees, you have the Astros. I don't really see priorities from this game.
Same here. I don't see myself getting to a lot of hitters outside of Trout, just because I always get Trout. He projects as one of the best hitters, regardless of whether it's a Coors slate or not. So I'll get there. 5,400. You're actually getting a little bit of a discount on what we've seen on him on DK recently. All right, let's go to this last game. We've got Tampa Bay and San Diego. A 4 flat implied total here for the Rays. 4.5 for the Padres. I just saw someone in the premium Slack chat ask if Greinke's out, where does the ownership go? I said DeSclafani and Erod, but kind of forgot about Lucchesi. So you think it's going to Lucchesi if the weather's looking dicey here for Greinke? 10K?
Yeah, right now we have him projected as the second highest owned pitcher anyway. I think that it's a pretty decent spot against the Rays. They only have a 4 implied run total, which is the second lowest on the slate behind the White Sox. So I just think that he would get a lot of that ownership. That's also something to keep in mind too. You can leave Greinke in your lineups and then like just pivot him to Luke, like global swap him to Lucchesi.
Yeah.
So that's an option too. That makes it'll make dealing with the Greinke weather a little bit less of a headache because you have that option. So I think all of those reasons will drive up his ownership. There's plenty of strikeouts in the Tampa Bay lineup. It's a good enough pitcher spark. Lucchesi is a good pitcher. He has a 23.4% strikeout percentage this season, which is about the same as Greinke. 4.35 Sierra, slightly higher than Greinke. Walk rate is 7.7%, so it's a lot higher than Greinke's, but it's still not bad. Just a pretty decent pitcher that I don't want to pay 10K for. Like if the weather clears for Greinke, I would rather just have all the Greinke and not care about Lucchesi. But I would have no issue rostering Lucchesi over Rodriguez or DeSclafani if I can't get Greinke.
Yeah, I think Lucchesi is the best of the tough options after Greinke. So how much I don't think I would get to 20% Lucchesi if the weather looks clear for Greinke. Right now he's at 23%. The ownership did change just a bit. Tom ran it with Stewart and Pruitt in now, so it looks a little bit different, at least in the middle here. But let's talk about Pruitt at right now getting 18% ownership, higher than Brock Stewart in San Diego. You've got a pretty low implied total against. Better chance for a win when you're coming in as this long reliever. Do you think he's going to even have a chance at the win, though? Right now, he's 4K, and you said he's not super stretched out, right?
Yeah, he threw. Let me find it. He pitched for Tampa on August 5th, so 7 days ago, threw 29 pitches there. And in the minor leagues, he wasn't throwing a lot of pitches either recently. So he looks even less stretched out than Brock Stewart is. He threw August 3rd, he threw 17 pitches at AAA, 40 on July 30th, 27, 23 on the 28th and 24th. He threw 70 pitches on July 13th. So we're talking about a month since he threw it, even 70 pitches. The one caveat is that we never know what these guys are doing in their bullpen sessions. So he hasn't pitched in a game in a week. He could have just been throwing, simulated games in the bullpen and getting more pitches in. But I think it's pretty safe to say that he's not going out there and giving you 70, 80 pitches.
Right.
But at 4K, you don't really need that. You just need 3 innings, and especially on this slate where the opportunity cost is pretty low and there's a lot of hitters we like, you just need a few innings and, maybe he somehow picks up a win.
Yeah, and you could do that against this righty-heavy Padres team who strikes out a bunch. So Pruitt's going to be in play for me. I think I would have Stewart a little bit higher over Pruitt right now. They're basically getting owned the same amount on DraftKings. So if you guys are looking at the ownership projections, you have to select relief pitchers as well. So you can select SP, you can select RP, and then you can see where Stewart and Pruitt rank because they're not listed as starters. So that's why you might be missing them if you're just selecting starting pitchers. I always like to look at just pitchers alone to see kind of where everything falls. All right, so this is going to be an interesting slate. Actually, let's finish this off with hitting in this game. Are you looking at any Padres bats against Pruitt? Looks like they're pretty cheap. 4K Machado. You've got Renfroe for 4,300. Tatis stays up over 5K, 5,300 for him. Any Padres stacks?
I can see getting there. It's just it's hard again to prioritize them ahead of Coors or Houston or the Jays game or the Yankees, and that's without even mentioning the Reds, who I think are in a good spot also. So or the Red Sox. So it's just really tough to get there. I do think they're favorably priced. I think the most likely I end up using them as one-offs or mini stacks because you do get really cheap power with Machado, with Renfroe. Tatis not cheap, but one of the best shortstop hitting options in terms of talent. So I think it's more likely that I get, 1 or 2 Padres in some lineups than that I get full Padres stacks.
Yeah, I was thinking Padres fillers with if you go something like a Stewart Greinke build with a stack in Coors or a Yankee stack or something like that. And so you're playing the 1 4K pitcher, you're kind of leveraging against him, against the other one with a couple hitters, especially power guys like Machado and Tatis or Renfroe or whoever you want to pick. That was more fillers, 2 and 3 mans. But any hitters against Lucchesi before we close this out?
I don't. Aguilar is really cheap. I don't really know what you need that salary for, but it's a good point per dollar option. You're going to get better raw point totals at first base, and with there not being 2 really good pitchers on the slate, I think that I would probably end up just finding the money for like Daniel Murphy, but that price stands out, I guess.
If you were making a cash pairing, just pitchers we're talking about here, I know it's super far out from lock. Would it be Greinke and Stewart right now in cash?
Yeah. Like if you went Greinke Lucchesi on DraftKings, you only have 3,600 to spend. And with all the bats on the slate, you obviously want more. If you go Greinke Stewart, you get 4,400. So that gives you access to a bunch of Coors bats, gives you access to, that Texas-Toronto game. And I think that's where I'd want to be.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't think on this slate you can pay up in any format for 2 pitchers. And definitely not if Greinke's not on the slate. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this White Sox weather. Go over and play on Yahoo, guys. Get in that rake-free, management fee-free tournament. It's called. Right now, there's still over 500 spots left. So if you're listening live, or maybe even if you're listening on the podcast, you might still be able to get into this tournament. It's a 10 max. It is $4,500 guaranteed, $500 to first place. A bunch of our subscribers are really enjoying playing in this tournament. And use the promo code AWESEMO for $30 of Yahoo Sports rewards points. If you want more, or up to $30 of Yahoo Sports rewards points. If you want more information, feel free to check out Emacs Spotlight Hitters article on the site. And Josh has Spotlight Pitchers out. I will have cheat sheets out for all 4 sites in probably by the time you're listening to this, if you're listening on podcast. What do you got going on for the rest of the day, Adam?
First, I just wanted to double back real quick to Yahoo pitching. So on Yahoo, Greinke's 53 and Lucchesi's 35. I think that makes Lucchesi really, really appealing. And then also you have a $26 Mitch Keller and $26 Jurado. So it makes Stewart and Pruitt completely useless on Yahoo.
Yeah, I agree there. Basically min salary for Keller and Jurado. 2 guys.
Oh, and Dylan Cease even. Like he's talented. Like I would still rather have Keller or Jurado than Cease, but you have a lot of minimum priced pitcher talent on Yahoo that doesn't exist on DraftKings.
Yeah, you've even got Fede for $25. No reason to go to a long reliever there. Even if there aren't a bunch of great options besides those guys, like these are guys that just have way more upside for their prices if everyone's going to be around the $25, $26 range. So Lofty has the deep dive today. You will have you'll be on the deeper dive, correct, with Alex and Lofty later?
Alex, Lofty, and I at 5 Eastern.
Awesome. And then Chris Spags, not Josh, and I will be on Live Before Lock at 6 Eastern, talking weather, I'm sure. So come get your weather takes. Follow the Osmo Weather account. We'll see if Alex tweets out anything during the day if he's concerned about this White Sox game, because that's going to swing the slate. So thanks for watching, guys, and we will catch you back tomorrow on the Strategy Show.